If you are an emotionally driven person and you, for some reason, find yourself aligned with some of these politicians in the Republican Party who are part of this whole election fraud scheme, then whether it's Kinzinger or anybody else, it doesn't even matter who it is that's speaking, saying things that you find uncomfortable, you will ignore the substance of what's being presented and you will focus on smearing the speaker. Again, replace Kinzinger with anybody else. You will find something negative about them and you will focus on their character. Oh, this person, they are such and such, and they're lying about something else, and they're not even a real Republican, and whatever, right? You won't address at all what's being said or what's being shown. All you'll want to talk about is the character of the person speaking. Ignore the evidence, distract with the smears.
5 days after the attack on the Capitol, Representative Mo Brooks sent the email on the screen now. As you see, he emailed the White House, quote, pursuant to a request from Matt Gaetz, requesting a pardon for Representative Gaetz, himself, and unnamed others. Witnesses told the Select Committee that the president considered offering pardons to a wide range of individuals connected to the president. Let's listen to some of that testimony.
And was Representative Gaetz requesting a pardon?
Believe so. The general tone was, we may get prosecuted because we were defensive of, the president's positions on these things. The pardon that he was requesting, was as broad as you could describe. From the beginning, I remember he's from the beginning of time up until today.
These are Trump's people speaking about the schemes that Donald Trump and his allies were involved in. These are Trump's people. Matt Gaetz, in particular, wanted a pardon from the beginning of time. If this is an uncomfortable reality for you, you will come up with all kinds of theories to defend against accepting the truth. For example, maybe the reason why they want a pardon is because the election was being you-know-what, and they knew that under Democrat rule, they were going to politicize, even though everything government does is politics. That's why they call them politicians. But anyway, they're going to politicize and they're going to go and come after them and all this kind of stuff because they're going to be mad that they fought against the establishment, right? So the deep state is going to come after them. So they need a pardon to protect themselves from illegal investigations and charges. And you'll think to yourself, I'd want a pardon too because I knew they're going to come after me. But that theory is not going to help you with explaining why Matt Gaetz, potential child sex trafficking dude that Republican voters care less about that potential fact than that Pelosi went to a salon. Why would that guy want a pardon? And asking from December, this is before January 6th. Why would he want a pardon from the beginning of time? Beginning of time? Right.
Ready in all things. I think you mentioned Nixon, and I said Nixon's pardon was never nearly that broad.
And are you aware of any members of Congress seeking pardons?
Yes, Mr. Gaetz and Mr. Brooks, I know.
Another person confirming that Matt, child sex trafficking Gaetz, asked for a pardon. This is not one person, this is two people. These are Trump people.
Both advocated for there to be a blanket pardon for members involved in that meeting and a handful of other members that weren't at the December 21st meeting as the preemptive pardons. Mr. Gaetz was personally pushing for a pardon, and he was doing so since early December. I'm not sure why.
Since early December, he was asking for a pardon. So what was happening just a few months before Matt Gaetz asked for a pardon from the beginning of time? This is just a few months before that. August 21st, 2020, former Seminole tax collector Joel Greenberg facing sex trafficking charges. Sex trafficking related to a girl between ages 14 and 17. Consider the irony or the hypocrisy of the Republican base, more concerned with a judge who supposedly seems a little bit soft on sex offenders. They were more concerned about that than a sitting congressman with direct ties to sex trafficking of children who might be guilty himself of being involved with child sex trafficking. Try to wrestle with that illogical behavior. A judge who might be soft on sex offenders gets you more outraged than someone being paid with your tax dollars who might have been involved in sex trafficking. Of course, those who find this to be uncomfortable process will focus on the fact that he has not been convicted. And then ignore the fact that he doesn't need to be convicted. If you're bothered by someone simply because you think they don't give harsh enough sentences on sex offenders, then the fact that this is Matt Gaetz' buddy who he was hanging out with, right, and endorsing, that alone should be enough of an indictment that you should be more outraged that he's being paid, that your money might be taken to pay for the salary of a potential child sex trafficker, at a minimum, someone who was friends with a child sex trafficker, and we know he knew what they were doing. Insane.
Actually, reach out to me to ask if he could have a meeting with Mr. Meadows about receiving a presidential pardon.
They all contact you.
Not all of them, but several of them did.
So you mentioned Mr. Gaetz, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Gaetz did. Mr. Jordan talked about congressional pardons, but he never asked me for one. It was more for an update on whether the White House is going to pardon members of Congress. Mr. Gomer asked for one as well.
And
Mr. Perry asked for a pardon too. I'm sorry.
did he spell Crosby correctly?
Yes, he did.
Did Marty Jo Greene contact you?
No, she didn't contact me about it. I heard that she asked White House counsel office for a pardon from Mr. Philbin, but I didn't frequently communicate with Ms. Greene.
Are you aware of any conversations or communications regarding the possibility of giving Congressman Matt Gaetz a pardon?
I know he had asked for it, but I don't know if he ever received one or what happened with it.
How do you know that Congressman Gaetz asked for a pardon?
He told me.
Tell us about that.
He told me he'd asked Meadows for a pardon.
Were you involved in or did you witness any conversations about the possibility of a blanket pardon for everyone involved in January 6th?
I had heard that mentioned. Yeah.
Do you know whether the president had any conversations about potentially pardoning any family members?
I know he had hinted at a blanket pardon for the January 6th thing for anybody, but I think he had for all the staff and everyone involved, not with January 6th, but just before he left office, I know he had talked about that.
The only reason I know to ask for a pardon is because you think you've committed a crime.
What this guy just said is 100% true, but if it's an uncomfortable reality for you, you will ignore the truth of his statement and focus on him. How dare he talk about who committed a crime? He's a corrupt politician and a warmonger, and he's at this, and he's at that, and he's at everything else. You will want to talk about and make a point about everything else other than the substance of what you just saw. The reality is, to some very clever and very corrupt people all over the world, they have seen that if you become a demagogue or a cult of personality and you prey on the fears and emotions of a large enough group of people, you can get away with shooting someone on Fifth Avenue and not losing any support. No amount of evidence will pierce the emotional shield that will protect you from all accountability. Mark my words, there will come a day when someone very, very evil and much more clever than Trump, much more covert, the media is not going to catch a lot of stuff they're doing because they're going to do it the right way. And that person is going to be inspired by what Trump exposed in terms of the weakness of human beings and how their emotions can be exploited in such a way that reality does not matter, evidence does not matter, facts does not matter. You can have every single person around you, your family, your best friend, your wife, all call you out as a fraud and a liar. But as a demagogue, it will not affect you. The people who fall in love with you will make excuses for you. They'll deflect. They'll change the topic. You don't even have to fight to protect yourself, because they'll fight for you more than you'll fight for yourself. That is the benefit of being a demagogue like Trump, who will take this information and utilize it to one day completely dismantle all the things that have made this country great, in spite of all the... This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.